Hi, and welcome to today's episode of The Supporting Actor. I'm your host, Adrienne Streeter, so let's jump right into it. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Supporting Actor. I'm Adrienne Streeter, your host, and I look forward to you joining the next conversation. In the meantime, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share as we are continuing to grow our audience. Let's welcome to the conversation Rebecca Rainey and her daughter Sloane. Hey, Sloane. Hey, Rebecca.
Hi.
How are you both doing?
We're doing great. Great.
Good. I love hearing that. Well, thank you both so much for joining the Supporting Actors podcast today. So, Sloane, I'm going to kick the very first question off to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, I was born with cerebral palsy, and my mom says I was very lucky because other people with cerebral palsy can't talk or stay in a wheelchair for their whole life.
Wow.
So,
what else do you want? What grade are you going into?
I'm going into 3rd grade.
Love it.
And
what do you like to do at school?
I like to read a lot.
Good. I love a strong reader. I love that. So I love how your mom told you that you're very lucky to be able to talk. And I'm so excited to have your mom and you on to share your journey. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience, like your favorite color, or do you have like a favorite cartoon you're watching right now?
My favorite color is purplish pink.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know.
What do you like to do that helps other physical therapists in training? How do you help them?
Oh, so at St. Augustine University, I teach.
Really? So what exactly are you teaching?
What do they do?
They're helping me and I'm helping them. So it's kind of like I teach them how to work with kids and then they help me exercise.
I love that. I think we have a photo of you and the staff, and I'm super excited to share that. That is amazing, Sloane. I love that. How did you and your mom get a part of that program? Or Rebecca, you may jump in there.
One of her physical therapists that she had for a very long time is now teaching at St. Augustine University. So working in the pediatric side for the doctorate students that are working to become physical therapists. And so she thought Sloane would be a great person to come in and teach about what it's like to do an evaluation. So like all the measurements, learn how to do the parent interview with me. And then a couple weeks later, we go back and then they have exercises for her. And she tells them what's fun and what's not fun. Because of course, with physical therapy, with kids, you've got to be able to make it fun. And if it's not fun, their kids probably are not going to do it. So she gives them a little rating on how well they did at the end.
Well, Sloane, I think that is amazing because my daughter, Ari Elizabeth, is still in physical therapy. And I am certain that some of the things that you're teaching your team is translating into the medical profession, and that is helping other kids around the world with their physical therapy. So awesome job. I'm so, so proud of you. Well, Sloane, I thank you so much for joining. It was really cool that you were able to join and share a little bit about who you are. I think we're going to take it over to your mom and talk with your mom now. But thank you so much, Sloane, and have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
And
Rebecca, she is amazing.
She is amazing.
I love that. So, Rebecca, tell us how and when did your family first learn about Sloane's condition, and how did that affect you all as parents?
So we went in for a 24-week ultrasound, and it was just routine. I was so excited about it because it was the 4D one where you get to see them moving and they look so real.
Yes.
And I knew that I likely had a weak cervix. And so I would always go in every appointment and say, please check this, make sure you see this on the ultrasound. And at the very end of this 24-week ultrasound, they said, okay, we'll take a look. And it was already starting to shorten. So we went into the doctor's office right away, and they put me in a wheelchair and rolled me up to labor and delivery in that same hospital. And I stayed in that same hospital in the antepartum unit for 40 days.
Oh, wow.
40 days in the same room, in the same bed, just trying to keep that baby cooking. And so we would see the maternal fetal medicine doctors and have ultrasounds about twice a week. They told me that I could go around in a wheelchair if I wanted to around the hospital just to get out of the room. But I was so determined to keep that baby that I stayed in the whole time. I didn't leave the room once. So
wow.
We knew it was likely to be a preterm birth. And so after those 40 days, my water had broken, and they at that point, they said, we need to go ahead and have this baby via emergency C-section. So that was at 30 weeks, so 10 weeks early.
Okay.
He was born at 30 weeks one day. And I always say the one day because, man, we worked hard for every day.
Yes.
And we're proud of it. So she was born emergency C-section. The spinal did not work. So it was not numb. And so at that point, they had to put me under general anesthesia. So I was out completely.
Oh,
and
wow.
then when I woke up, the first thing I said was, how much did she weigh? You know, because I wanted to know how big did she get? And she was born at 3 pounds, 4 ounces.
Okay.
And then she was in the NICU for 8 weeks after that. She had a brain bleed, which we knew about pretty immediately. And they were finding that the ventricles, which are the spaces on each side of the brain where there's spinal fluid circulating, they were clogged. So that circulation wasn't happening like it was supposed to. And when that happens, they consider putting in a brain shunt. So basically relieving that fluid and that pressure so that it doesn't cause more brain damage. So we transferred hospitals. They put her, this little tiny baby, in this like huge specialized incubator that could travel.
Okay.
And they brought her via ambulance to another hospital where they had a pediatric neurosurgeon that could put in the shunt if she needed it. Luckily, the brain bleed resolved itself.
Good.
Did not have to do the shunt, but we knew that there could be some brain damage because of that clog. So we did an MRI before she left the NICU, which did show what they called a cyst, which essentially was fluid filled because of brain damage. And it was right in the portion of the brain that's in charge of motion and movement. And so they gave me a pamphlet, and we had a meeting with the doctor, and it was highly likely that she would have cerebral palsy. Right when she came home from the hospital, we had a at-home physical therapist coming in, I think once a week, maybe twice, and doing the at-home physical therapy with her. They were always looking for increased tone or like tightness in the muscles.
Yep.
So that's how we found out. And how did it affect us? Well, she was our first baby. And so, of course, it was like, what is this going to look like? And I remember being very frustrated because so many of the doctors and nurses and therapists, they all had the same phrase, which was, we don't have a crystal ball. And I remember being so mad every time I heard that, because it was like, I know you don't have a crystal ball. You don't have to tell me that, but tell me something, you know, and they don't have answers for you, so they can't tell you. But they also told me that there's a wide spectrum. Like disorders. Like there's a wide spectrum for cerebral palsy. So I only knew of cerebral palsy where it was students who I'd worked with in the elementary school, where it was, they can't talk, they can't walk, they're in wheelchairs. That's the only vision I had in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't realize that there were people who could walk with cerebral palsy. Truly did not realize that. And so, we realized that we played such a big role in how Sloane's condition plays out.
Mm-hmm.
I think we know that more than ever, that the interventions that we do now, the surgeries that we do now, the decisions that we make, as hard as they are to make for someone else,
Yes.
let alone someone so small,
yes,
they make a really big impact in what her future will look like.
And that's something that I always say in terms of being the supporting actor to your child. You are having to literally be their advocate. You're having to research and learn medical terms and things that you probably didn't go to school for in order to make the best decision that you could possibly make for your child.
Exactly.
Now, I know a little bit more about your journey from our conversations pre this recording, and you and your family traveled significantly for some of her treatment. Can you talk about that and how that decision was made?
Yes. So we live in Austin, Texas, and we had heard from her neurologist that there was a surgery out there called a selective dorsal rhizotomy. And this is basically a spinal cord surgery. It's a magical surgery where they go into your spinal cord and they find nerve bundles that are sending bad signals from the brain to the muscles, which essentially that's what CP is. Like that brain is sending messages to the muscles and they're not coming through correctly because of the damage. So they find which nerves are causing problems and they sever them permanently.
Wow.
And it gets rid of spasticity, which Sloane's diagnosis is spastic diplegia, meaning diplegia is affecting the lower limbs mostly. It affects her hands as well, but it's mainly with fine motor movements. We have her in piano right now to help with that.
Love it.
But there's different kinds of CP. So hemiplegia is mostly on one side of the body. So an right arm, right leg, or left arm, left leg, that kind of thing. And we heard from our neurologist. So back to how we ended up traveling. We heard from her neurologist that the surgery existed and she may or may not be a candidate. We would have to find that out. And so one of the hubs of cerebral palsy where people travel all over the world is Gillette's specialty healthcare in St. Paul, Minnesota. And so we were like, let's go. We've heard multiple doctors with multiple things they want to do. And let's go get the data because we're very data-driven people. And at Gillette, they do a gait analysis. So they stick all of these little, it's like a robot. And it's also a lot like when you see they're doing special effects in movies and they're having, a human actor turn into a creature of some sort. They put all these little sensors all over the body. Well, what these sensors do in a gait analysis is they see how strongly muscles are firing, which ones are firing, which ones are weaker. And they have Sloane go across this room that has cameras everywhere. And it's kind of like a model catwalk where she has to walk along this strip of tile. And even some of the tiles have pressure so they can see exactly how her footprint is.
Really?
The ground. They turn her into a digitalized stick figure on the screen. You can see her walking. So the amount of data they get from this is huge. Wow. And this is really how they help determine if she was a candidate or not for that SDR surgery. Ultimately, she was. And we did end up going up to Gillette for that surgery. And we were in the hospital there in the rehab unit for 5 weeks. Wow. So we stayed up there for quite some time. But what was great about it was we met a lot of other families who were having the same surgery from all over. And, you kind of have that feeling of community. I was able to work from the hospital room and Sloane was going to therapies all day. So ultimately, for us, it was a really good decision.
Well, you said something and you shared with me one of the pictures from her gait analysis, and I was so in awe of that photo. And we'll add that photo if we haven't already to the podcast so that everyone can see that. But as a mom who works in tech, how has that or any other parts of technology, how has it helped or is it still helping Sloane's ability to walk?
Very much so. I think that gait analysis was really the only really firm piece of data we had in making these really hard decisions for her.
Mhm.
Um, like I said earlier, making a decision for someone else that's life changing and also risky, like a spinal
Mhm.
cord surgery, is a very difficult one. So having that technology to back up the decision gave us a sense of confidence that we were doing the right thing. She has had a gait analysis, I think, 3 times. So once to see if she was a candidate for that surgery.
Okay.
Again, about a year later when we did the surgery, to
Okay.
have more of like a this is her before, this is her after surgery. And so then we did it again a year after her surgery. And they can actually, see what a big difference it made in getting rid of her spasticity forever.
I love that. And I love hearing your journey and how you all have just really supported Sloan through this process. But what is something you wish you knew before that if you had, had some information or that would have helped you along the journey that you could share with our audience members that could possibly help them if they find themselves either in this situation or if they are currently in this situation? What do you wish you knew?
A couple things. One of them is that there's a community out there for you with mentors. And so right now there's a nonprofit called Hand to Hold, and they're based in Austin, Texas. I
Mhm.
learned about them because while I was on bed rest in the hospital before Sloane was born, I'd worked at an elementary school at the time, and one of the members of the PTA also worked for Hand to Hold as a volunteer. And so I started having volunteers from Hand to Hold come in to talk to me while I was on bed rest and ask what I needed. And then once Sloane was born, they would visit and check on us in the NICU. And so now I am a peer-to-peer mentor for Hand to Hold. So they will pair me up with other parents who want a mentor that are in similar situations. So their child may or may not have CP. There may be some indication that they might. And so they will pair us together. It's nationwide. So right now I'm paired with someone in another state. And we email or we text. And when questions come up, I'm just someone to answer from our own experience. So that's been something I wish I knew more about, was the mentor program. And then the second thing, I actually brought my book here. This is a book written by a parent about the type of CP that Sloane has. It's big, and it's written with the collaboration of Gillette doctors and therapists. So it's got the medical side backed up by doctors and other professionals, and then it's got the parent side. So she talks about how her son is now 25
Right.
and what his journey was like and what she wished she would have known. It talks about the types of leg braces that you may encounter, the types of surgeries you may encounter, common problems. Like there's a scale 1 through 5 for gross motor function for kids with CP. It breaks all those apart and talks about what that is and all those things that you hear about in your doctor appointments, but you don't always know everything about it.
Right.
And this is in layman's terms that I can understand. And so this is a book that I highly recommend. You can get it on Amazon. And I wish I would have had this from the start. Like, I feel like I was late in getting this, and Sloane was only like 7 when I got it. So wish I would have had that.
Well, we will put not only Hands to Hold, the organization's link in the description, but we will also put that book with the link to Amazon in our description. So for anyone who may want to donate to Hands to Hold or purchase the book for either themselves or a loved one, the link will be available for them. So thank you for that. That was so important. I love how you shared that resource. Are there any other resources that have been very, very just valuable to you along your journey that you would like to share?
Yep. Having a very strong medical and therapy team has been so important. So feeling like you're really working with people that you trust is huge. And I think because we have been lucky enough to have that, you end up finding out about more resources through them. So one of them that we've learned about through our therapist is CPATH. And this is just a Central Texas nonprofit. It's Cerebral Palsy Awareness, Transition, and Hope. And what's really cool about them is that they are about building that community of
Yeah.
families. They have play dates. They have movie nights. They have an equipment closet. So if there's somebody who needs a pair of shoes that zip instead of tie,
Yeah.
you can donate your shoes there and other people can get them. Same thing with like walkers and wheelchairs and other specialized equipment like that. So they're another one that we learned about through our really awesome therapy team.
So I will share with my audience. I don't know if everyone has seen, I think it's episode 2 of our podcast where I'm interviewing Ari Elizabeth and we're showing Billy's. So this video is not sponsored by Billy's in any way, shape, or form, but Rebecca was the friend that really told us about Billy's because Ari Elizabeth was in AFOs and we needed a shoe. We were having a really hard time finding a shoe that would support her foot, and we love Billy's. So thank you for sharing that. Now, my last question, and it may not be depending on what your answer is. You previously stated that you were in education and now you've transitioned into, I believe you're in tech. How has working in the tech industry been supportive? Because you also mentioned you were able to work from home.
Mhm.
Can you tell our audience about how you are balancing being a mom in tech as well as supporting your daughter through her journey?
Well, I work remotely, so that's really been something we're so thankful for. And I wonder what it would have looked like for our family going to that 5-week rehabilitation after surgery in Minnesota. So just that flexibility with the remote work has been huge. Luckily, my company also allows us to put in submissions in a Reward Your Passion grant. So I can write in and get $500 for the nonprofits that I care about and work with. And that's been really great to see that support as well.
I love that. And for any parent who is out there, I would really urge you to work with your employer around supporting you if you are on a similar journey, as well as starting something what like Rebecca's organization where they are allowing you to reward your passions and the nonprofits that you support. So I would say reach out to someone in your HR department for that because that in and of itself shows that your employer cares for the things that you care for. So, Rebecca, I just want to thank you for your vulnerability and allowing Sloane. She is absolutely beautiful, and I love that she was able to come on and join us. What has and I lied. This is my final question. What has education, being a previous educator and now a mom, what has education looked like for Sloane, and how receptive has her school been in supporting her through her journey?
So my husband is a school counselor. He's the director of school counselors. So having him kind of knowing more of that side, with helping Sloane specifically, kind of coaching her through some of the hard things. You know, she can't run. She's very excited now. She can jump forward 13 inches, which is huge.
Yay.
But you know, PE looks different for her, and so we
Mhm.
talk a lot with the gym coach. We have a 504 plan for her, which basically says, you know, her gym is going to look, her PE is going to look different than others. the expectations anyway for what she can do, and like use of the elevator and things like that. But otherwise, she's in a typical third grade dual language. She's learning Spanish classroom coming up. So I think one of the fears that I've had as a parent is how well will she be accepted by her peers? And so I really do try hard to put her in activities that she can do that help her build relationships with others. So like Girl Scouts,
Yes.
things like that, that she's really enjoyed and built some strong friendships through. And overall, like so far, everything's gone really well. I do dread the teenage years a little bit, probably like every parent does, when she's like, I can't find shoes that I like. You know, what am I going to wear to the school dance? I can't wear high heel shoes. You know, all those things I'm sure are coming down the line, and I'm trying to prepare myself. But we really do try to focus on what she can do. It's like why I'm not surprised at what she said at the beginning of this recording was, you know, like, I'm really lucky. We focus on what are we thankful for? You know, you can do things. You can do a lot of things. What are those amazing things you can do instead of focusing on what you can't?
I love that. And that's for anyone, really. Like, what can you do that you can highlight the positivity and not focus on the negative? And I absolutely love that. I love how you and your husband are both just raising her, and he's that inside into the educational side, because that is huge. In the previous podcast, the young lady spoke about how her daughter had autism or has autism, and when she was growing up, you always separated the children who were quote unquote different. And so children who were pronounced or deemed as normal never had to interact with anyone other than the ones who were around them. So I love how you're talking about Sloane is part of her community, Girl Scouts, play dates. That is so important to not only her growth, but the growth of the community as a whole. And so I appreciate you sharing that with her.
You reminded me of something that I had some fear about as a parent, which is she wanted to join her school's dance group, which was Ballet Folklorico. And I thought, oh, she wants to join dance. I knew this day would come, you know, where she wants to do something that she's going to have a lot harder time doing. And then I was wondering, will the teacher be okay with this? That she's not going to be able to do maybe everything that the teacher had choreographed for them. And all those fears, I should have just never had them, because Sloane had an absolute blast. This was months ago, when she did the dance in the living room just the other day with her brother. And I just have to let that go. Like, if Sloane wants to do it, just let her do it. You know, she will find what she wants to do and she will do it. She's got amazing work ethic. And as a parent, I just kind of got to let it go.
Listen, I definitely understand those fears, but we also have to let it go. I love it. Rebecca Rainey, this has been an amazing conversation. And I thank you for allowing us as viewers to come alongside you during your journey and just learning more about how you have navigated learning more about CP. So thank you so much, Rebecca, and we appreciate having you. Take
No
care.
problem. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Take care. If you want to learn more about cerebral palsy, CP, feel free to take a look at the description, the link in the description, and check that out. But we just want to thank Rebecca and Sloane for joining us today and just really being vulnerable and sharing their journey with us. If you know anyone who is in the Austin area and would like to know more about that local nonprofit that Rebecca mentioned, we will have that link also in our description. So thank you all so much for joining this week's episode of The Supporting Actor. I'm Adrienne Streeter, your host, and we look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Take care.